really debated if I even wanted to do this tonight. Because in hindsight, I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's probably not the best decision, but here I am. This fucking thoughts of the Emberbane still fresh in my mind. And also the fucking crash I experienced before starting this. And I wish that was a joke. Like, oh boy, do I have a story to tell. But let's get to that story. Because I had to write down all of my thoughts in a neat little document. And because I wanted to make sure I was as organized as humanly possible. So, give a little bit of a background for what this overview is going to be about. Back in 2023, I want to say March, because it was a 3-month campaign. Emberbane is a 2D pixel-style Metroidvania. You know, one of several fucking genres, or at least subgenres that I fucking love, besides Souls-likes. It had a Kickstarter campaign. Oh my gosh, English. Raised about $32,000 from 1,154 backers. Guess who helped kickstart it? If you guessed this schmuck, you'd be correct. What was the pledge that I made? $15, which was pretty much the cost of the game. It's $14.99 on Steam and other platforms. Yeah, it was just really the same platforms. Plus $16 for a demo and the digital soundtrack, which meant the amount that I've paid was $31. And at the time of this stream, I've only gotten the game. That digital soundtrack I was at least looking forward to, because I actually did get a chance to listen to the soundtrack. It's one of the handful of positives I can at least say about the game, which we'll get to. Never got it. And as far back as I try to look through the emails or the updates, they were gonna try and work through getting to the pledge rewards while fixing the fucking game. Again, we'll get to that. But the demo, I sadly had not been able to had an opportunity to experience it. They did have at least they at least had a couple demos. That much I do know. But actually, yeah, one of them was a live demo at an event. But as far as I remember reading about the demo, reading about it, at the very least on one of the updates they had prior to changing the release date, or what the initial release date was, the feedback was not great. And you're gonna see why that is once we start. What was that initial release date? It was January 5th. And as you'll see on this, and as you'll probably have figured it out, it wasn't. It was February 24th. That's what it says on the Steam page, and that's ultimately the release that we got. Unfortunately, for reasons I'll explain later, it really could have helped if it was delayed even further. Would it have sucked, given that folks like me had kickstarted this fucking thing back 3 years ago? Yes, but at least for me, I wouldn't have minded if it meant the game was actually functional. If the product that is ultimately released didn't have as many issues as it did. And if that was anything to go by, and I kind of wish I had a screenshot of what the fucking store page had shown. Because I do remember distinctly mentioning sometime last week that the recent reviews were mostly negative. It's now changed to mixed, but God, seeing that after seeing what you would actually help bring to release. Sad part is it's not even the only game I did have on Kickstarter, but I pitched in the Kickstarter. Andrew Gore was another one, and that, at the very least, A, was a functioning game, and B, is actually doing moderately better, sitting at mostly positive on Steam. That's another one I actually like. The fact is, between this and Emberbane that I just got a release. Meanwhile, the other Kickstarters I pitched into either were cancelled or have yet to see any further development updates. I'm starting to see why people no longer trust Kickstarter or any of the sort like that anymore. After how many projects I've either failed or have rolled back the stuff that they had promised. Looking at you, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, as much as I fucking love that game. Like, people were anticipating a very certain thing. I think it was the randomizer. Not the randomizer, the fucking roguelike mode. That was a place for the randomizer. No, that's not what people ask for at all. Again, far from enough to bring a game like that down, but holy shit. Oh, and if we're gonna be talking about initial players, should I show my... I wish I had done that earlier, but what I was gonna mention was Steam Charts, because I don't know if I can even put this up yet. If I were to go to Steam Charts, where the fuck is it? Yeah, the current average is still at a 2.3. And the 30-day percent gain was negative 44.91. There weren't that many people that were on to try it when it released. And like the player drop off, even if I could at the very least. Oh my god. You can't see it, but like the fucking peak, the all-time peak for this game was 15 players. And like suddenly it makes a whole lot of sense why it was so low. Jesus Christ. Yeah, because before that it just came up with an error message, but now I'm actually able to see how many people actually playing. But I mentioned that we're gonna mention why the steep drop off in what better way to actually show than to actually put up the fucking game, right? Unfortunately, it's another one of those games where, unless it's the sole focus window, it's just gonna fucking go into idle. What? No, you are not doing this. You're not about to tell me that this fucking game is gonna crash on me while we're trying to boot this fucking thing up. I will say this though, it actually looks nice. It actually is the credits. Do we even want to shame them? Oh look, it's actually cooperating. I wish I could actually show you, but even this was showing itself to be buggy. And I have no way of recreating it. None whatsoever. Oh, but you know what? Ah, but my fucking notes are... Hold on. I'm gonna have to improvise just a little bit. Because I want to actually... It is imperative, trust me. I was gonna mention, like, key bindings at a later point, but I might as well mention this now. You see all these key bindings? Also, that was... I don't know what was that. Is that fucking game? See these key bindings? That's it, by the way. You can change them to different buttons, but, we're gonna get to why one of them not being available is a fucking problem. Now I could start up a new file, at least to actually show what the beginning was like. But at the same time, this isn't like a review, right? It's not meant to be a review. It's meant to try to just give my overall thoughts because, like I said, I helped fund this. Well, as if I was a fucking investor. And I, at the very least, was one of over 1,000 to help pitch into something like this. I don't want to go into this big of a... So let's start off with the things I actually do like. I was going to mention the controls. Unfortunately, it's about par for the course. It's like, yeah, no, I expected the control as well as it is. And because of how much of it actually feels right up to it, like, yeah. The sliding, the jumping, the dashing. You know what, let's go to a more open space because this is way too fucking cramped. Controls, there is a portion of controls I want to actually mention, but again, that's not the stuff I actually do like first and foremost. I mentioned the graphics, which again, like, they actually look nice. A lot of it actually, like, the overall style of it is something I actually fucking enjoy. It is at least a nice looker. Like the animation, the pixel art style, the cutscenes when I was actually able to look at them was actually neat. Again, one of the few things I actually don't have to complain about. Music is another thing. Like, I already mentioned, like, man, it would be really nice if I had the digital fucking soundtrack, because I actually do like the music. Bit of a shame that, you know, not exactly having a means to actually experience it without being in the game is a bit of a pain. I already mentioned the movement options, which, again, par for the course of every other Metroid main. Whoops. That's not a... Okay. Actually, what's the best... What? No, I might as well fucking mention this right now. The fucking elements that you have. Well, the void, which is just... That's fucking innocuous. But, like, everything else, like fire, water, earth, storm, those are your 4 main elements. And because they're controlled by the, like, analog stick, that's pretty much how you're gonna be switching between elements. Now, you know the thing I mentioned about the something about not being able to keybind it? Something I constantly find myself having issues with is switching elements. Especially in areas where you have to switch at least once to go in a further distance, at least until you get either ramp or wings. Because you know what ends up happening? You're trying to get to a part where you don't have those fucking handlebars. Or in my case, it was like, oh wait, I don't have ramp yet, but I can still manage to make a certain area. Let's actually go there, and that actually shows what the fuck I'm talking about. Because it keys into exactly why this is a problem. And actually one of the biggest problems the fucking game has. So let's say it's... Alright, it's all the way back here. You know what? Let me just show it to me. Like, you'll get to a point where you actually need to switch between multiple elements. And unfortunately, despite how responsive the controls are, the fluidity of that movement is very in comparison to, say, like, even stuff like Metroid Dread, Hollow Knight. Well, I would say Castlevania, but we haven't had one of those in a long time. At least one I can care to mention. Hell, even games like Burnout Edge, what I mentioned, which I mentioned, like, oh yeah, it is actually good. I actually did manage to beat it. Because I was considering doing the hardest difficulty of that game, but like, this instead, I'm sure this is one off, but like, stuff like a speed booster or fucking shine spark. That type of movement is fucking fun as hell to mess around with. But I mentioned switching of elements. You know why that's a bit of a problem? Despite the clear inspirations to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's say you were in my case and you see the mastery of each element right there. Because what I end up having to do with something like this, it's like, oh, I have a favorite element I want to use. Well, sorry, mate, you kind of can't. At some point, you're gonna have to switch up your elements to go further distances, to actually do shit. Stuff like that. Like, stuff like that sort of movement is what you're probably gonna end up doing to get as much distance as possible with the elements that you're using. Like I said, it's the right analog stick. You know what else is on the right side of the controller? X, which is used for fucking Earth. Or, you know, jumping. Which, here you have a double jump and a wall jump. You know what else is on that? Is the fucking, like... You probably see why this is a problem, but... If you're gonna be using this on a controller, I'm actually not sure how it is on keyboard. But you're using a thumb on the right analog stick, but you're also using it to either do another double jump, or in Earth's case to do like the fucking drill, or in stuff like the fucking storm, where instead of an air dash you get a fucking propeller. Like, it basically limits you until you have to switch. And speaking of limitations, because of you having to constantly switch between elements, you see those mastery? Yeah, the points that you get to actually get the upgrades, not just for like your element, but for the passive shit that you'll be getting as well. Stuff like movement speed, attack, like damage dealt, your fucking flask, and your health. Like, all that shit adds up. Oh, and like stuff like the fucking relics that you can buy. All that really kind of adds up to what is basically a grindy experience. Also, I do love the add-on animation. That's awesome. Because as fast as switching elements is, everything surrounding it feels a bit clunky. You'll find yourself fighting enemies or fighting multiple encounters. Realize that, oh wait, you're kind of depending on using a specific element against a certain type of enemy. So then you have to switch back over to that particular element in the middle of either chasing back and forth between them, or just literally goes like them thoughts. And I'm still struggling because I didn't realize how much I actually was going to mention. But ultimately it is going to be frustrating. Granted, it's probably something you can get used to, but like, it's kind of ass. Oh, and while we're on the subject of actually mentioning the points that you need to level up and shit, I mentioned that you kind of need like points to do like level ups and like put your stuff in merchants and shit. Is that an example? Actually, yeah. Pretty sure. Hold on. Because like stuff like this is probably one of the more egregious examples. But it's no better once you start leveling up past level 2 for like your elemental mastery. There's stuff level with a decent amount of points, and then it gets even higher to the point where it feels like a fucking drop off. Also, fucking disgusting that something that used to cost like, I think it was 200 in one of the early shops. Now it's up to 600. Like, granted, around this time, it actually does give you a decent amount of points. So if you do need to, at least for this area, which is all the way over here, by the way, for where you have to grind it for it, it's not as bad to actually get the points you need. But early on, when you're trying to like build up, so you can actually get some of the stuff like the 2 flasks you can buy. Oh, but the 2 flasks you could buy at that point, or the movement upgrades, or damage, or health. That's a lot of points, at least early on, that you're going to be accumulating. Probably not into mastery, because the most you're getting out of mastery is extra moves or effects. Or stuff like an increased damage. This is like movement stuff is getting by shrines, which you're not getting into level ups. Or stuff like an extra attack move. Or an added effect after using up your fucking G. Or increasing the duration of that effect. Like, very menial shit. I will say this, though. Like, for what the elements actually do, they are at the very least actually very unique to one another. Like, I kind of wish there was a bit more synergy between them. Because I imagine, like, not just like earth and fire, right? Stuff like that. Also, that's not supposed to happen. They just clipped through the wall. So, like, having a lot more synergy would actually help. So you can actually see how each element can work with one another. So you're not just sticking to one element. I was gonna mention like the boss fights and how like, because I think there's like 2 of them I had access to, but I didn't bother doing them yet. Mainly because I actually wanted to use them to kind of illustrate what the game can do well, slash the issues that I have with it. Might as well at this point.
Out of my way or the prof gets it.
Am I just realizing that, or is it? Nope, that's just me. I was like, that's weird. The music is weirdly low compared to everything else. Dude. Like, it's already a bit of a problem. The last thing I need is to have the music glitched out. Especially doing stuff like a boss fight. That would be horrendous.
Are you deaf or what? I said out of the way!
And it's what I mean when I was referring to like movement options being limited to shrines. Also, all of us is something I would have liked to have earlier because there was a path. There was a path that was blocked off by. It's like, oh no, I can actually do this. No. Oh. Yeah, like those were actually fun. Like I could see like a generally great like experience from this, but like getting to the point where it's like, oh yeah, this is actually fun. Meanwhile, trying to get used to a bunch of the stuff they're trying to teach you or trying to get used to it.
Diana, the huntress who mistook savagery for freedom. You called it instinct. I call it decay.
I mentioned after this.
Beasts roar. Men rule. The forest bows not to mercy, only to flame.
I haven't even mentioned the story because, like, the reason we even have as much action as we
Stay
do,
calm. Focus. Panic feeds the illusion.
are like the elements and why Ophelia, the main character's name as it is. Oh, we could just we just add straight up add access to it. But like Ophelia, a lovely protagonist, is basically the bearer of the flame from that king bastard that we saw in that cutscene. Man who was killed by I'm pretty sure it was because Diana's one of the ones that we actually have. Because all of that leads up to what is basically a Metroid style gate. Because the first boss was Violet. Oh, right, that was okay. That's over there, 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 there. You think I would remember the names, but like, I'm kind of shit with names. Really bad with that's what I'm doing. Unless I was able to commit that to memory. All that leading up to, I can only guess this right here. Too bad I'm probably not to experience it because, as much fun as it can be, I've had my fair share of frustrations playing this. And to be fair, I've gotten used to it. It was like, okay, it's not as bad as it was when I was starting off, but man, still be frustrated. Anyway. Music and they were style. Movements. I was gonna mention the enemies being spongy, but like, I'm probably gonna write that off as a nitpick. Cause yeah, until you get to the point where you actually have damage increases, that's a nitpick at best. Not at all necessary to the points I actually wanted to drive home. And speaking of that, a lot of what I mentioned, the movement being rigid, the fucking upgrades, being expensive as they are, meaning you're probably gonna have to grind at least a little bit, if not quite a bit more. They're constantly switching between enemies without elements, without being able to rebind the right analog stick. I should probably mention that B and Y also do nothing outside of the menu, which, to be fair, you can rebind keys. Actually have them do something. But no switching elements. That's stuck to the fucking analog stick. Something that could have been done with like a toggle on the left and right bumper. Or have it so that you can sort out which order you want them to be in with the toggles. That's one thing I probably could have forgiven had there been a bit of a direction with why we have to. And again, like the story does a serviceable job actually explaining like the elements and the importance of them, at least for feeling out. But that's kind of it, isn't it? The elements mainly serve to kind of help along with the story and because they're necessary to progress. Not so much something that feels like, oh, it's a natural part of the game because you kind of have this sort of option to specialize in a specific element if you really want to. Because you kind of can, but for a great deal of encounters, at least from my experience, that's not really the case. It kind of feels like you kind of gears you towards actually having to switch up the elements you use. And as a result, it kind of feels clunky. It kind of feels like there's no real direction as to why. Not to mention, each time you actually get an element, I kind of wish I could show this off. But like, each time you do get an element, it only gives you like a very basic tutorial on what each one does. And then it kind of expects you to kind of figure out how to get used to it and how to deal with enemies in combat. Which unfortunately means if you do fail, that's a bit of backtracking for you. Wow, backtracking in a Metroidvania. It's a small nitpick again, but like, I cannot stress enough. Like, it would probably help to give me a bit more used to the elements before expecting to go off into the wolves and actually deal with combat and platforming in conjunction with everything else that you're dealing with each element. And to be fair, I always kind of do prefer when I can actually figure things out on my own. That's something that the game does at least do. But a little bit more than just press X to do Y would probably be just a little bit of help. Just a little bit. I don't typically ask for much, but I might as well mention this now since the fucking elephant in the room is the fucking bugs. I was gonna mention like the fucking patch culture and stuff, but that's gonna be after I fucking mention like the fucking bugs that I experience. Oh, look, it crashed again. Okay. You know what? No, fuck that. I'm going to mention this now. So, the first time I was going to, like, the fucking sand prison, the fucking music stopped playing. After the first time I died, it was like, oh, the music is just gone. I was actually trying to... It just breaks the fucking immersion. And despite there being... Let me double check, make sure I'm not getting this wrong. 2 fucking pack... Well, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4 fucking patches. Actually, no. four or five, 4 or 5 patches, and it's still experiencing shit like crashes or bugs like the music being missing or the options menu being bugged. Like that's the second time this crashed now in the whole 80 hours I've spent playing. Not 80 hours, 8 hours. This is always not completely deafening. Where is it? Here, at this point. You know what? Let me put this even further in perspective because it's probably going to be important, right? I know how important it is that post-game launches, it's like, oh, there's bug fixes. It'll probably fix like the issues. I'm past caring. Like, it's become such a norm to expect bug fixes, to expect things like, oh, it'll be back in a playable state after the game had already launched. I'm sorry, but games like No Man's Sky, being the singular point of how patches and overhauls after release are important to fix the game, but rather than being a reason of how development can fully realize the vision for the game, time after time after time, it's kind of just shown that it kind of just became an excuse to just release the game now and fix it later. And you know what ends up happening? The people who pre-ordered the game, which is another issue in its own right, or bought the game at launch, or people like me who kickstarted the fucking thing, we end up being the actual beta testers instead of, you know, them having a demo that actually sees what problems need to be fixed before release. Something like that should at least put this in fucking early access, not a fully released product. And just to further illustrate like the drop off. What if I just click after? I am so tired. I apologize. And to be fair, the fucking gameplay section was probably not going to be as much as I was anticipating. Oh no, nice. It's Steam Library. It's not important. Oh my gosh, it's so fucking wide. That's not important. But you may have noticed like stuff like achievements. I don't think I've ever played a game where the achievements are fucking gold for shit. And while it may not be the best indicator for like what's like how many players have actually played to a certain point, at the time I was playing this, at least before the stream, 10.9%. At the time it was 9.2. These gold bit, like, yeah, anything like 9.0 or lower, like below 10%. Has that fucking, like, 8.2, 4.0, 4.4, 2.8, like, barely anyone has, what that tells me, barely anyone who got the game, played it, and got past the tutorial. let alone got to the other elements. It's fucking sad. Like, and the thing, I was actually looking forward to this. Only to see that what we ended up getting was really very much undercooked. As much as I want to give it the benefit of the doubt that, oh, it's gonna get better after this point, given how much it has offered at that point in time, I don't think it is. Like, what we see outside of like the additional movement options and whatnot, that's very much what we're getting. Like, that's very much the experience, and that's kind of sad. Because I can see a good game, but it's fucking boring. People's first impressions are very important for, like, actually getting word of mouth about how, whether or not the game was worth getting or whether it's worth the money. Yet all we got, three years later, $32,000 later, multiple betas later, this is what we end up with. Needless to say, I'm not happy, neither as a customer nor as a backer. That's not even mention the fact I haven't even got my other pledge rewards. Like how? This is one of those times where I wish I remember what my fucking topics were. Because anger is the best way I can describe it. Matter of fact, hold on. Really? It's part of his fucking control? Like a combination of this and this is the best way I can describe it. It's disgusting. That's all I ultimately wanted to say about the game. Because it sucks. Like, well, not the game itself. The game itself is at most fine. But it's a very frustrating fine. Because I've been waiting 3 fucking years for something more akin to Avatar The Last Airbender. Much as I love the show, the tie-in games, pretty much all of them have sucked. We've not been getting any good Avatar games. And it's like, Emberbane comes in and is like, oh my gosh, fucking finally. And it's a disappointment. I don't know how to describe it other than I don't know how I feel. Well, anyone who does play the game and gets to the credits, and then being reminded, oh yeah, I backed this. I'm not know what to say. Barely gonna be an hour for this. Mainly because it's just meant to be just like a bit of an overview of what my thoughts were. Hopefully next time I have a stream, it's actually gonna be more discussion stuff like Steam and whatnot. Which will probably be at the Paracosm. That's gonna be it. My apologies for being as short as it is, but like, what is something that would warrant a video, let alone a review? It's really right. Oh gosh. Excuse me. That's a friendly reminder. Because I need to start doing this more. There's a like button that exists. There's a subscribe button that exists. There's a notification bell that exists. Y'all know what to do. Fucking smash that into oblivion. I'll see you most likely prepare a costume.